Simon and the Mystery of the Missing Letters. It hadn't stopped raining all morning in Cranbourne. "Roger, I'm bored," said Simon. "Why don't you play with your toys?" said Roger. At that moment the doorbell rang. It was Simon's friend Jen. Simon was pleased to see her, and they went to his room to play with his toys. When they were alone, Jen took something out of her pocket. "Look, Simon," said Jen, "I found this letter sticking out of your letterbox." On the envelope it said, "This letter is private. It must only be opened by Simon." It had tiny footprints all over it. Simon was excited as he opened the letter. He read it out loud. "Dear Simon, we need your help. There is a thief here in Letterland who has stolen letters from the beginning of some of our words. We know you are a good speller, so we thought you would be the best person for the job. You can bring Jen too. Sminkit the fairy will be there to meet you when you arrive. Yours sincerely, the Ing of Letterland. P.S. To get to Letterland, all you have to do is hold hands, close your eyes, and say the following magic rhyme. Rum-tum-toe, it's time to go." "Do you think it will work?" asked Simon excitedly. "Let's try it," said Jen. So they held hands, closed their eyes, and said the rhyme. Rum-tum-toe, it's time to go. Whoosh! Suddenly they were sliding along a beautiful rainbow. They landed in a meadow full of flowers. "That was brilliant," chuckled Simon. "I can't believe it worked. I hope Roger isn't wondering where we are." "Don't worry," said a little voice. "A year in Letterland is only a second in your world. You really landed with a ump, though, didn't you? Are you okay?" A tiny fairy flew up out of the grass. "That must be Sminkit," whispered Simon. "Why did we land with a ump?" he asked. "Because of the letter thief," said Sminkit. "You must help us to find our missing letters. Now follow me." They followed the tiny fairy, who sprinkled fairy dust as she flew. She led them through the woods until they reached a beautiful castle. A large man wearing a crown appeared, looking very sad. "Hello, you must be Simon and Jen," said the man with the crown, trying hard to sound happy. "I am the Ing of Letterland. I've sent for you to help find our missing letters." Simon bowed to the Ing. "Pleased to meet you," he said politely. "Since we landed with a ump, the first letter we need to find must be a..." "B," Simon and Jen both shouted together. It's there, it's hanging from your crown," he told the Ing. The Ing took off his crown, and a big smile crept over his face. "So it is! You really are very clever," said the Ing. "Well, we can't carry on calling you the Ing, can we?" said Simon. "So the next letter we need to find must be a..." "K," Simon and Jen both shouted together. "Let's start by following the path through the magic forest," said the Ing. As they walked through the forest, they could hear it whispering, "This way, this way." They turned around, and there, hanging from a branch, was the letter K. Sminkit flew up and knocked it off. Simon caught it as it fell. "It's as though the forest is trying to help us find the thief," said Simon. "Yes, the Rees certainly are magic," said the Ing, who was very pleased to have his K back and could now be the king again. "Oh dear," sighed Simon. "Looks like we need to find another letter. It's the letter..." "T," Simon and Jen both shouted together. Once again the forest whispered, "This way, this way." They soon came across a beautiful white animal that looked like a horse, but had a horn on its head. It seemed very sad. "Look," said Simon, "there's a letter T hanging from its horn. Hooray! Now the Rees can be trees again." "Let me introduce myself," said the animal. "I am Starlight the Nicorn." And with that she started to cry. Simon and Jen knew why Starlight the Nicorn was sad. Another letter had been stolen. The letter U. "Don't worry, Starlight," said the king. "We will find the letter U, and you'll get your full name back. Come and help us find the missing letters." "Thank you," said Starlight, happy again. Again the forest whispered, "This way, this way." Soon they heard a meow, meow from behind a tree. A black and white tail poked out, with the letter U hanging from it. "Look, there it is. You've now got your U back, and you can be a unicorn again," said Simon. Starlight was very happy. From behind the tree came a voice. "Help me! Somebody stole one of my letters." "Look," said the king, "it's a black and white at." "Oh dear," they all said. "Another missing letter. It's the letter C," Simon and Jen both shouted. The black and white at was wearing a bowler hat and carrying a walking stick. "Don't worry, black and white at. Come and help us find it," said Jen. Again the forest whispered, "This way, this way." They soon saw a large blue trunk poking through the bushes. Something slid down it to the ground. "It's the missing letter C," said Simon. "You're a cat again." Attached to the big blue trunk were two big white tusks and two big floppy ears. "Hello, I'm Leonardo the elephant," said the large blue animal. "Oh dear," they all said. "That means another missing letter. It's the letter E," they all shouted. "Boo-hoo," cried Leonardo, flapping his ears. Once again they waited for the trees to give them their clue, but this time they were silent. "Maybe there are no more clues," said Simon. "Let's look at the letters we have so far." They all sat down on a tree stump. They scratched their heads and stroked their chins. Then, suddenly, Simon shouted out, "I've got it!" If we put all the missing letters together, you get B-U-C-K-E-T. "Bucket!" they all shouted. "Ah, yes," said the king excitedly. "There's a bucket in the old wishing well. Back at the castle. Follow me. Perhaps we'll find the letter E there." So Simon, Jen, Sminkit, Starlight the unicorn, the black and white cat, and Leonardo the elephant followed the king back to the castle. When they got to the well, they looked down it, but couldn't see anything. "If you turn the handle," said the king, "you will raise the bucket." Simon turned the handle, and, sure enough, there was the letter E, as well as lots of other missing letters. However, the bucket seemed very heavy. So Simon looked underneath it, and there, hanging onto it, was the thief. He'd been hiding down the well all the time. The king's soldiers marched the thief to the castle dungeon, and everybody cheered. Leonardo the elephant was given his E back, and he became an elephant again. "Thank you, Simon and Jen," said the king. "Before we leave here, you must both throw a coin into the wishing well and make a wish." Simon and Jen were very excited as they made their wishes. The king put on a big party that night for Simon and Jen. They ate delicious food and danced and sang with their new friends. The king gave a speech, thanking Simon and Jen for their help. Finally, it was time to say goodbye. The king was sorry they had to go. Simon was too, but he asked him, "Do the wishes from the wishing well always come true?" "Always," replied the king. "Why do you ask?" No reason, said Simon with a cheeky smile, as he knew he would be visiting Letterland again. With that, Simon and Jen held hands, closed their eyes, and said, "Rum-tum-toe, it's time to go." Suddenly they were sliding back to Simon's house, where they landed with a bump this time. Everything was the same as it was when they left, and, sure enough, Roger was still sitting there, and the rain was still falling, as though nothing had ever happened.